All right, and we are live for another Reverse Web3 Comic Con event today. Back here with a couple of very special guests, and excited to dig into this conversation. So we've got a couple other people that are probably going to jump into the stream, and if you tuned into the first 3-second version of this stream, then hopefully you found your way back over here. But excited to talk about this. So Kevin and Jason, why don't we just quickly start with you guys introducing yourselves?
Who goes first? Me?
Go for it.
All right. I'm Jason Brubaker. I have this comic publishing company called Coffee Table Comics. I've been doing it since probably 2009. Started out mainly doing stuff online on the side of my day jobs, and started self-publishing hardcover books. Have maybe 15 or so books that I've published now. Started with it all beginning from the website. So web comics was kind of the foundation for it. That's how I shared it with the world, and then through crowdfunding like Kickstarter was able to crowdsource all the printings and stuff, and I still make a living doing a lot of that stuff. And now I'm with Macroverse, so that's kind of the portal that I use to and this is the goal anyway. That Macroverse will be the portal digitally for everything online. And yeah, so that's what I do now. I also have a drawing curriculum called Cognitive Drawing that I'm currently trying to finish right now too. That's me.
Which we just got to say, the second Kickstarter for Cognitive Drawing is live now, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I didn't know if you wanted me to promote it, but yeah, go type in Cognitive Drawing on Kickstarter.
Promote
and jump on board. It's got 20 days or something.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Thank you. Kevin, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, Kevin Gardner from 12 Gauge Comics. We're an indie publisher and producer of comics. So we mostly focus on crime, action, and horror, and definitely independent. We don't publish everything on our own. We kind of we produce content. We publish most of our books through Image over the years. Been doing this since 2004. Been working with Dark Horse as well recently, and then we have published on our own, which Eben was a big help when I did that push a few years back, and then also we've been doing Kickstarter too. So we're kind of jack of all trades. We do anything we can to get our books out.
Amazing. Well, and many books at this point, which is awesome.
Yeah, tons of books for sure. I don't even know exactly how many, but it's
that's probably a number you should have at your fingertips at some point.
Yeah. You should know that, but yeah.
Very good. And Alex, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us.
So I'm Alex.
Oh, you're muted. There we go.
Am I?
Oh, you're pantomiming. You're cutting in and out, Alex. Can we try again? No.
Does that sound all right?
Oh, maybe. There. Oh, keys. Something? No.
This is weird. Yep, there's something.
There's something weird. All right, Alex.
Like
sorry, I'm gonna go to the other Alex for a moment and then come back.
All right.
Alex, introduce yourself.
I'm the second string Alex.
No.
Yeah. No, I'm Alex Robnet. I'm the writer and creator of Digital Pools. I also have this very small imprint. Nothing super fancy, but it's called Dark Web Comics, and we've been working with indie comics for the last 3 years, and had the pleasure of meeting Eben I guess a couple years ago, and been in love ever since with Macroverse and what they can provide. So
very cool. All right, Alex, let's try this again. No. Maybe no. You're still muted. Maybe try without the earphones. Oh, now we're getting weird feedback. Oh no.
That's weird.
Well, shoot, Alex, just sit there and look pretty. Oh, maybe.
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yes, maybe. Try again.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Maybe.
Sorry about that. Is it still breaking up? Hello.
It's delay.
You're
Weirdly.
kind of out of sync. Yeah, I think that's the thing.
All right. Maybe I should try. That'd be okay.
Maybe try coming back in. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The joys of the live stream. Hello.
It's been working so well up until now. But by and large, this has gone very nicely.
No, incredibly well. Absolutely. Well, so I guess, a place to dive in, and if we can get Alex in here to talk as well, we certainly will. But maybe a place to dive in is, I think I wanted to have this conversation weirdly in the context of, really celebrating and promoting and talking about the digital comics experience that we're crafting and that we've been working on for quite a while, and that is kind of coming to fruition now in very short order. And we've talked a lot about digital and this kind of exciting world of Web3 and NFTs and digital collectability and all of this kind of new frontier kind of stuff. But at the heart of wanting to make comics, there is also something just really undeniably special about having the thing, having the physical object in your hand. And it's something that we get asked a lot because we are so digital first, about is there a plan for physical print editions of comics? And the answer for us is always yes, there is a plan. But I also know there are a lot of people in this space and that are making comics and looking at making comics where digital, whether that's through platforms like Webtoons or perhaps some of the stuff that we're that it's become so accessible to create content that way and get it out in front of an audience. And yet there's still a desire to ultimately see that thing collected and put into some sort of print format. And so I thought it would be really useful and interesting to have this conversation for people that don't have experience in print, who've maybe never, gone through what it actually takes to put something together for perhaps a Kickstarter, let alone the actual intent of getting something out into traditional comic stores. And so the collection of all of you have done all of those different things, and so that's kind of what I wanted to dive into. But before we do that, let's see if Alex Ogle can talk.
Okay, can you hear me?
You're just out of sync, Alex.
It's so weird.
There's a glitch in the matrix here.
Give me a second. I'm just going to clear my brain.
This will be the game show part of this event. Is we'll see when can Alex talk. All right. In the meantime, Kevin, I want to start with you because I think you have been on so many different sides of the industry. It's one of the things I think you don't get enough credit for, in my opinion, is having not only been someone that's put out original content and gone through both kind of crowdfunding and Kickstarter more recently, also very much through the traditional industry into the direct market with your own books, with Image. But also, you didn't mention that, you had a comic store at one point, so you've been on the retailer side of things, and you're also very much involved with the first launch of Valiant Comics, which, was a whole different side of the industry. So you've kind of seen, all of these different components. And, I like to talk to people about, when you and I worked together putting out the Boondock Saints series, like that was my way to kind of see the 360-degree view of comics publishing. And you can see since then I've kind of run screaming into the digital world. So maybe just give a little perspective from all of that on what those different arenas look like, and maybe what you found as some of the maybe start with kind of what the great parts of it are.
Well, look, I mean, and when you say all that, talk about being old and kids in high school and college. Yeah, I've been doing this for way too long, I think. But yeah, I mean, look, I started in comics. Grew up learned to read because of comics, and that's really, people say, how did you get into comics? I was like 6 years old, and I was homesick, and my dad, what he called were funny books. He brought me home some funny books and some candy, and I couldn't read. So it was like, I remember specifically, it was a Batman comic, a Spider-Man comic, and like I just was desperate to read those books. And my mom was just totally like infuriated after probably 2 days of reading those stories to me over and over again. That's why had the desire to read. And so grew up with comics, got out of it again, like when I hit middle school, high school. And then when I went to college, the first Batman film had just come out, and I moved to college and discovered a direct market comic book shop, which I'd never been into. I got everything off the spinner racks at the grocery store, the gas station, places like that. And found The Dark Knight and Watchmen and all that stuff. So that was how I got into it. And then around 93, opened up my own comic book shop. Again, I was at Auburn University, and they didn't have a lot of great comic shop stores. So I opened one up, parlayed that into working for Valiant in their first phase. Actually, it was sort of a reboot at the time they were doing. And I came in there and managed direct market stuff and did all the conventions. And with that, just met tons of creators. But also, a book that was very influential to me was Stray Bullets. When I was working at Valiant, Dave Lapham had just left and published his own comic. And I was working at the offices, and we all went down to, I think it was Jim Hanley's Universe, and everybody was excited to pick up his comic. And then I was like, wait, you can just do this on your own? And that was where that really sparked my interest in publishing, and knew all these artists and stuff. And over the years, I'd tried to get them to work, like harness the Brian Stelfreeze and Cully Hamner, Jason Pearson, Adam Hughes, all these guys at Gaijin Studios in Atlanta that I'd gotten to be friends with. And I was like, man, you guys need to be doing your own stuff, and let me help you. And finally somehow convinced them to do that. And so in 2004, we launched our first book, hooked it up through Image, did great, just kept going from there. But yeah, I mean, it's tougher now in a lot of ways to get published. We've done tons of books through Image, but Image doesn't always want to do what you're doing because for different reasons. Like they may like the book, but they have something similar. That's where Eben and I kind of hooked up. Was you were doing the Boondock Saints, or trying to get that off the ground, and I was actually getting ready to publish some stuff on my own. So that's how we did that. And I think now it's easier than ever to get seen or to get your stuff out there, because there are so many digital options, and crowdfunding to do the traditional stuff is trickier. I don't know, like it's kind of a double-edged sword. It seems like it's easier in some ways and harder than ever. Like we've had a harder time getting stuff just through the system over the last couple of years, with the pandemic that hurt us in ways just because of like paper shortages and people are being very picky about what they put out. But it also opened up the door to crowdfunding. We've done 3 successful Kickstarters, and each one of them we've learned different lessons, because they've all been very different kind of books, and all luckily successfully funded, but not necessarily. You learn something different every time. That's a trickier game for sure. I mean, you guys that do it well and do it over and over again, I'm just amazed. It's such a wild thing, but also awesome. Like if you have an idea, you can do a Kickstarter, and then now you can have a published comic book. What you guys are doing at Microverse with the different way of putting the books out to new readers and getting a new audience in a different format for it. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's a really fun time. It's trials. There's a lot of hills to climb, but there's so many opportunities now to be seen with your books.
Yeah, totally cool. Well, let's play this game again real quickly. Can Alex be heard?
Please tell me you can hear me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Awesome. Alex, tell us a little bit about you, man.
Oh, you want to learn about me?
Yeah.
Well, I can operate a microphone somehow. It's amazing. No, I'm an illustrator and designer, and I've been doing stuff since the late 90s. And I've been working on different things, different websites for different companies. Like I even did stuff I did a website for Gaijin Studios back in the day, about 2005, 2006. And I've been publishing my own stuff through Kickstarter. And I created an animation back in the late 90s called Johnny Nitro. That was an internet hit kind of thing. And that was a lot of fun. Yeah. And now I've been working on stuff for Marvel, doing illustrations for them, for their movies and everything else. And now I'm working with Frank Miller on Frank Miller Presents. I do hit their website as well. So.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that. That's alpha for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I've been around the industry and seen it in lots of different ways and tried to innovate in technology and everything as well. So
yeah, very, very cool. Well, Kevin was talking about being able to successfully do Kickstarters over and over again. So that has kind of been Jason's whole experience in comics, right? So I mean, give us a little bit more of that experience, and I'm especially interested. Like you I think were early in you're early in web comics, and so kind of riding that early wave of that. And then when you saw Kickstarter, you kind of jumped right on that too. So what was it that made you, first of all, kind of take the leap from working at DreamWorks and, kind of being in the regular job and kind of wanting to tell your own stories, then kind of finding these different outlets to do it, and, how that's going to turn into your own career here? Oh no, Jason, you're muted.
There we go.
Yes.
I did, get the big job, the dream job, DreamWorks. And at that time I was working on this graphic novel called Remind. And so I just didn't even know what to do with it. Up until that point, I would put out comics and sell them to my friends and family. And so finally I was like, maybe I'll just try this online thing. At the time, it was only gag a day type strips that were successful. And there was a couple long format ones that were building popularity, but no one seemed like they really cracked the code, And so I just was like, I'll try this web comic thing and try blogging and just see if anyone other than my friends and family will actually read this, And because I didn't want to just give up on it. I got the job, but I didn't want to give up on this like hobby, because all my career has been based on personal projects. So this was my new personal project, right? And to my surprise, it just started growing and growing and growing, and grew in popularity. And I would write blog posts about what I was learning. And so I started getting this kind of ravenous fan base that was divided into two parts. There was one part that would read the books on the pages on Monday, and then another part that would read the how-to content on Thursdays, and then some crossover. And so I was just telling people, like, this is my dream, this is what I'm trying to do. And I don't know how I'll print it, but I want to. And I applied for a grant at the time. It was a Xeric grant, which was by Kevin Eastman, or was it Laird? I don't know which one, but I think it was Laird. But they had this grant for self-publishers. I got $5,000 from that grant, so I won that grant. So that was a big deal. And around the same time, Kickstarter came out. And so my fans were the ones who were like, you should do a Kickstarter. And I had no idea what it was at the time. It was maybe 6 months into it being live. And I was like, well, I already got this grant money, so let me just try it out. And I just don't want to waste my time. I don't know anything about it. I just don't think that there's going to be that many people who want to pay for my book. But I tried it, and it was really successful. And it kind of opened my eyes and opened a bunch of people's eyes. And I was able to print this really beautiful hardcover book with cloth binding. And it was just better than I ever expected. So that mixed with the grant money. And then the next time around, I spent like another year or two working at DreamWorks, working on my comic on the side. And I was like, I don't know if people are going to still be there for it if I do another Kickstarter. And it ended up raising like $107,000. And that broke records at the time for the categories I was in. And so it was just super eye-opening. And it would be the type of thing where I would go to a convention on the weekends, be selling it directly to fans, my books, and they'd be excited about my books and my stories. And then I'd go back to work and work on these big $150 million movies and just not be that excited about it, because I'd rather be working on my book, Yeah. And so through that whole process of just putting it online, raising funds on Kickstarter, I started realizing that there is money in this. I just need to, figure out how to make it work for me. And so part of that was just leaving LA, leaving California, to just downgrade my living expense. I live in Idaho now, very cheap, and but I'm able to do it full time now, and so it's a whole different world now than it was when Kickstarter first started too, because there's things like Patreon now, and Webtoons came out. I was part of that with Sithra, my other series, and now Macroverse, I think, is taking the next steps. So it's exciting for me to to kind of have someone like Macroverse, like you guys, providing all these tools that I tried to make myself but couldn't do it on my own. And so, I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I think it's, I think that to me, like, one of the things that it sounds less intentional than I thought it might have been, but I love the fact that, you've kind of found yourself kind of in each of these waves, and been willing to kind of jump in. So I guess, one more question around the early Kickstarter. I think a lot of people, do Kickstarters for individual issues, these days. They don't necessarily decide like, oh, I'm going to do a whole graphic novel and I'm going to do it as a hardcover and I'm going to do it and, this kind of beautiful cloth binding and, really make this really kind of high end collectible version as the first version. So I'm curious about that, if that was, kind of this is the thing I want, or if it was tiers that led to that, or kind of how did that meet?
Yeah,
the format?
I grew up collecting comics. So similar to Kevin, my dad gave me a comic when I was young and I just fell in love with it. And so I always loved the comics, the floppy comics, but they never, I could never keep them nicely like I could the hardcover books. And so I just had this desire to collect things as trade paperbacks or hardcover books. And so I wanted that to be the thing that I produced instead of what I considered throwaway material. And so the internet became, like, web comics became more of the floppy comic for me, because it was able to reach a huge audience online, and then the people who wanted to collect it could then collect the hardcover, the nice edition. And so that was just the thought process for me was, I've already put out what's comparatively the floppy comic. It's online. It's on my website, and now I'm giving someone a collector's item. And there was just certain books that I really fell in love with the feel of them, and I just wanted to imitate that feel. And so part of it was this kind of a hard-headedness with my approach. I wanted to prove to the comic industry, that the ways I want to do comics are the right way, and it's not right for everybody, but I just had a certain set of rules that I wanted to, like, push on everybody and say, they must be double page spreads. They must be this, they must be that, it must be hardcover. And so it's just one of my many rules that I just have pushed with. And that's why I call myself Coffee Table Comics, is because I want it to be something that you would put on your coffee table that's similar to a coffee table book, like a really high quality, nice paper, nice art all the way through it, that you want to just leave out. You don't want to just put it on a shelf or in a box and put it away. So that's kind of the main motivation behind the collector's edition type books. And I've tried reprinting my first books as soft covers, and they sell just as well, but the problem is they're just not the quality I want them to be. So I'm like, why don't I just continue just making hardcovers only in the quality that I want, since they're going to sell equally the same,
That's cool. Alex, quick question for you. So, you guys with Digital Pools, this is when you were putting that together and kind of evaluating your way to get out to the market, you guys have done a bunch of successful Kickstarters as well. What was that like, and kind of what made you say, like, oh, this is the path? Did you try going to traditional publishers, or you just knew that was the way to do it?
Yeah, we did. In the beginning, I met Matt through my creative partner at Dark Web, my illustrator. Met him through the Google algorithm, which linked us up, and he happened to be local in Connecticut too, and so we met up for beers, and I was like, hey man, I've got this pretty cool idea, and I was going through some stuff, and I've always written in the jobs that I've had, always written reports or financial write-ups and stuff like that. Basically, a lot of it was copy, and I just didn't really know what copywriting was. And I was always interested in reading, always wanted to write my own story. And then finally, I was just like, I'm going to do this, and that's where I met Matt. And so we did the traditional thing for a little while, after working with each other, trying to get an 8-page, draft of Digital Pools and what we thought what the plot outline was going to be. And so we read thousands of forum posts and trying to get our pitch as exactly what it should be, and then we sent it off. And I think someone made the comment that the market is more optimistic for independent creators now, but the problem is that there's just so much content out there. You're almost racing against 100 times other folks that have the ability to draw electronically, share files with the creator, and then reach an audience, or try to. And there's, with the internet, it makes that 10 times easier. So after a while, we were like, you know what, like, let's just do this. So we were so committed to the idea, and then because we had heard about Kickstarter from a local comic book shop, he said, you guys should try that. And so that's what we did. Unfortunately, the timing, I think Matt and I met at 2019. And so we were like, this is going to be awesome. 2020 is going to be our year, just like a lot of people said. And then 2020 came around and it was nobody's year. And so it changed. It kind of changed our strategy a little bit. So we really focused in on the Kickstarter stuff, try to get our message out there, push social media hard, try to get our followers up, which is just the name of the game. You have to play that game right now. And so that's what we did. And then we had our first Kickstarter, and it went off without a hitch. We got a lot of hits from it. A lot of the guys I was working with at the time, they were really interested in the story. I come from a blockchain background. I work in blockchain full time, so the story kind of has some beats that are very much related to that world, and everyone was onto it, and so it was successful. And then we released 4 more issues after that through Kickstarter, and they were all successfully funded. We did a trade paperback and one as well, and we kind of grew our Connecticut audience. So I guess just the way we came around it was, and again, I'm pretty much the newbie on this little round table here, so I'm fresh in the mix, like with starry eyes and like thinking, I could conquer the world with my story and get my message out there on social media, and then raise the funds, which is basically where the rubber meets the road, through Kickstarter. So we're still new into this, but I'll just segue really quickly into, once we found Macroverse, that's where things changed again. And I'm happy to say kind of what our thought process is now, like considering that route, post Kickstarter,
we'll get to that later. I appreciate you guys talking about us, but let's talk about you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, other Alex, now that we can hear you, I know you've done some Kickstarters and other things as well, but tell me a little more about kind of your experience on the publishing side of things.
Yeah, so I've been published by several smaller publishers, and done my own Kickstarters, and written and illustrated my own books. Those went well. Those are fun. Right now I'm transitioning a little bit away from that, but those all went pretty well. I don't like being a shipping department for a month or two. That's a little tough part. So working with publishers is a little nice on that side. Just sending those files off and then getting the books later, that's really nice. And seeing them on stores. But yeah, it's an interesting process. The regular distribution networks and everything, going to stores, and seeing that. And Kickstarter's the opposite. It's direct market, right? It's like direct to consumer, and that changes things a little bit. Like, it changes how you market, how you approach it. You're not necessarily catering to a store owner; you're catering to a consumer. So that changes how you talk about the book a little bit, and how people access it. Sending people to stores, there's still a disconnect there, I think, a little bit, between telling people, you got to tell a store you want it and get them to order it, versus like, I'll just mail it directly to you. But it's interesting. It's from growing up on comics and loving comics, seeing them in stores is still the key for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when we have to ship things digitally and things as well, there's so many options, and Macroverse has been good for that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So Kevin, I think, the other thing I think that would be cool to kind of talk about and dive into here a little bit is, when no matter how you're going to put these things out, whether it's, pitching it to a publisher and trying to find direct market distribution, or it's, putting stuff together for Kickstarter, we are dealing in the world of physical things when we're getting things out to publish. So there's the shipping component and all of that, but there's also just, how does one put a comic together? Like, how does that happen once you've got, someone that knows how to make art, and, you've got sort of the story and the raw elements of it, when you're actually going out to publish something, there's more to it than that. There's kind of an understanding, besides just like how to put some files together. What are some of the things that people may not realize or think about, when it comes to how to actually get this thing into people's hands?
So are you talking about from like indie publishing to like trying to get the book into comic book shops?
Yeah,
or?
publishing in general. So it's like, let's focus it on the direct market. So then in this case, so yeah, if you're, whether you're putting it out yourself or you're trying to get, a traditional publisher to put it together, what does that process look like? A lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah, look, I mean, the hardest part is, obviously getting the book ready to where you've got a comic book. And what I do, like I'm not a talented enough writer or artist to do books, so I have to find people that will do them with me. So yeah, I mean, look, once you have a creative team and have an actual, your pages are ready and you've got your lettering, there's so many different ways to go about it. But like when we started, it was, let's try to find a publisher, and we went to Image and submitted, and I will say straight up, I mean, I had it easy from that standpoint because I was working with very established comic book artists, and I knew some guys at Image, so I just made a phone call and sent them the book, and that is so much easier, obviously, to do it that way. I mean, they get so many submissions, it's I can't even imagine how many come in each day in the mailbox, or the email box or the physical mailbox. But that's the best option for anybody that's looking to do a creator-owned book. If you can actually finish your book and submit it, that's takes so much of the the heartache away. In Dark Horse and IDW and other, they've all got different deals for creator-owned stuff now. So back in 2004, it was just Image, really, for the most part. But yeah, like the stuff that we've done on our own, and Eben and I were working together because I had always delivered files to Image. Like we had our own designer, that we worked with, and to get books pretty much ready. But then we would hand over them to Image, and they would handle all the getting the print ready for the press, and which is another skill set. I mean, it's a kind of a you can't. It's for somebody that can do all of that themselves. I mean, you're the unicorn, and I know some of you guys can do all that. I certainly can't. But to get it into the direct market was also that's where things have sort of switched, because back until recently there was only Diamond, and to get through their gatekeeping was very difficult. I mean, I know some great looking comics that they wouldn't pick up because for them it was not worth the trouble. Now we have multiple opportunities with different publishers or different distributors. So it's kind of like it was back in the boom days in the 80s and 90s, when there were multiple outlets to distribute your books, and you could find somebody that you can show them, hey, here's my book, and now you can actually get into comic book shops through multiple different distributors, which is great. Dealing with printers, that's a tricky thing. I mean, there's obviously you've got the print on demand type press, you've got traditional printers that from United States, Canada, going to Korea or China to print books. That takes a lot of legwork, a lot of they're like, even today though, there's places like Print Ninja where you can just get online and get a quote, and something like that is kind of makes it easier. I don't know, man. Like there's a lot of work that goes into publishing a book. We could probably do a whole segment on that.
Yeah. I was thinking that as you were talking, but I think one thing. Yeah, you and I really actually haven't had a chance to talk about this. So I'm curious about it. As the for people that don't know, like one of the changes in the traditional comics industry over the past couple of years has been this kind of re-proliferation of distributors. Where for people that don't know, it kind of went down to one for quite a while. So Diamond was the only game in town for a decade.
Yeah, I was working at Valiant when all that went on, and from a comic book store, as a comic book store owner, there was Diamond Comics and Capital City were the two big entities. And then there was a ton of other small distributors. So you could like if you were in the Northeast, you could get multiple regional distributors, Heroes, World, and a couple others. I mean, there was a ton that would distribute your books and had different incentives and whatnot. And at the time, like Diamond and Capital City were both vying for my business. So they would, I'd negotiated terms against each other. And then, after a couple of years, renegotiated to get a better deal. But then when I went to work for Valiant, that was like, I don't know, 95, 96, something like that, when everybody started going to exclusive. And DC, Marvel had started their own distribution. They bought Heroes World. That was the New York-based entity, and really shook everything up. And then the other publishers, Marvel, Valiant, Dark Horse, Image, were sort of trying to negotiate for themselves. Some went with Capital City and some went with Diamond. And at the last second, everybody went with Diamond. And that, Capital City, which was a great distributor, they ended up, going out of business, and all the other smaller distributors, they were soon folded. So then you had, a monopoly for all, intents and purposes ever since then, until a couple of years ago when DC, broke away. And I think the pandemic really, Diamond shut down and didn't distribute books for, a month or two or a couple months. And DC said, no, we're not dealing with this. And so they went and partnered with another distributor. So that's actually a good thing. It's never good for business to only have one option. I mean, that doesn't grow business. And like when I got my comic book shop, I had net 45-day terms. Comic book shops for the last 15 years or so has been, your COD cash for like the first year. Then they'll move you to COD money order maybe for a while. And then if you're really lucky, you can go COD check, for a year or two. And you're paying for all your books way up front. Now that you've got, competition, there's a little bit more opportunity to, it's almost impossible to make a small business go, retail anyway. And when you make it to where they're having to pay for all their books before they ever get $1 in, it makes it even more difficult. So that's been the biggest thing that I hope can help a new growth in comic book shops. Now that we've got other distributors and they've got skin in the game and trying to make it work, I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, there can only be good for there to be multiple outlets for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think, man, I feel like I wish we had another hour to talk to you guys, because we're barely scratching the surface. I can't believe we're kind of at the end of this conversation at the moment. So I think, maybe a question to wrap up on, and then, if you can kind of give an answer and then tell people where the best place to connect with you and kind of where to follow you, learn more about the stuff that you're doing. But maybe a quick question to wrap up on is, looking at the landscape right now, and let's, for the sake of argument, take digital out of the equation and just think about, ways of getting physical product into people's hands. If someone comes to you and says, like, I've either got this great idea for a comic and I want to, produce it and put it out, or, here it is, what's the best way to get it out? What's your kind of advice to people, in that position?
Well, I guess I'll just get out of the way and go first. Really, it depends on the what you have. I think I would direct it based on kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, but, sure.
Obviously, if you have a real book that you think has a chance to go at a publisher like Image, I just can't recommend them enough. And Dark Horse now too, like they are. I've got a project I did with them a couple of years ago, and I'm about to do another one that we're going to do early next year. They now have a creator-owned deal. If you ever get published, retain your rights to your IP. Like that is the most important thing. Do not give up your IP rights. To if there is this super slim chance that you'll get a TV show or a movie, but just make sure you hold on to those. And that's what's great about something like Kickstarter or self-publishing. So I would definitely, Kickstarter has been great to us, great to so many creators. And then, there's Indiegogo, there's other options. Those are the two things, you can't go wrong with you can get your books out one way or the other, especially with crowdfunding. Just do your homework and, listen to what other people that have been through it say. We do a lot of tutorials. It's a great thing if you can make it go.
Some people on this channel at the moment. Kevin, where do people follow you?
At 12 Gauge Comics, or it's pretty simple. So yeah, across all platforms at 12 Gauge Comics.
Yeah, and I'll just shout out and say, if you like really high quality action adventure type of content, you can just pick up anything out of the 12 Gauge catalog, and you're going to be happy about that. 100%. Alex, what's your answer to that, and then where do people follow you?
Well, I think if you're going to go with Kickstarter, you really have to be someone that can do it all or assemble a team that can do it all. If you are an artist and working with a writer, and you're willing to wait, because traditional publishing does take a long time to get your book seen and made. You will have to submit it and wait and if you don't deal well with rejection, you go on Kickstarter might be the way to go too. Even though you have to get accepted by the crowd, it's a little easier to take that than publishers sending back like no's to you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But both of them have their trade-offs, but Kickstarter is a lot of fun, and it's really a great system to get your stuff out there and get seen and get noticed without having a gatekeeper in the way of getting your books made. But you can follow me at alexogle.com. And then from there, all my social media is on there, and even contact me through forums on my site, stuff like that.
Awesome. And I would be negligent to not say that Alex just turned in some gorgeous pages for a short story in the Bushido's universe, which we've been working on. Incredible stuff, man. Like, I can't wait for people to see that stuff. Super, super cool. All right, other Alex, what's your thoughts on, if someone comes to you and says, I want to put stuff out, what do you tell them?
Yeah, I tell them that just getting to the baseline of where we are today. It's the creative ideas. It's an open market for it. So if you have an idea you want to go full bore into, like, have at it. It's a wide ocean to kind of spread that message. It's the most difficult part is finding a creative partner. But if you can find one, hang on to them, because especially if you guys can work well, guys or girls can work well with one another, that makes things so much easier. Especially if they're tuned in to the idea that you have. Discovering and reaching your audience is next. That's a little easier, or it's a little bit more difficult. But with all the platforms out there, it's super easy now. When 20 years ago, none of this technology existed, and just the only way was by word of mouth. But now you can reach people across the globe with a click of a button. Funding, like everyone has said on this panel, Kickstarter and Indiegogo are the way to go, really. And really, you don't need much to get an idea started. If you got the whole idea fleshed out, $500 goes a long way. I mean, with Print Ninja or Comics Wellspring is like a group that we've used in the past to make awesome stuff. That $500 can go a long way. And then after that, it's just about getting it into stores, and maybe that takes a little bit more of a grit, shoot a pavement kind of mentality. So yeah, it's really about the drive to get it started, the grit to get it done, spreading the word on social media, and then get it funded. And like I said, $500 goes a long way for sure.
Awesome. Alex, where do people find you?
So my Twitter handle is probably the best way to stay in touch with me. After avoiding Twitter for so long, I finally decided to join. So my handle is robnetstories.eth. So you guys can find me there. The Dark Web Comics is also on there. Dark Web Comics. Just search it up on Twitter and you'll find us. And yeah, that's like the easiest way to keep in touch with us. What we're doing now, what kind of stories I'm working on, and then how much what we're working on for Macroverse.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And speaking of someone who has maybe the easiest creative partner to work with himself.
I don't know about that. I'm pretty hard on myself.
So Jason, what do you tell people? I mean, you actually, what we didn't say, you just had was it year before the pandemic or during the pandemic, you had your first book that you did have go into comic stores. So you did have that experience, I believe, with Mad Cave Studios. What do you tell people if they, say, I want to go this road? What's your advice?
Well, in addition to, what you guys already said, coming at it from a creator, owner, writer, artist, everything all in one, I really try to get people to just focus on finishing the book first before they answer that second question of, what mountain do I climb now? People try to climb that mountain first, but sometimes it takes 2 years to finish a book, 3 years, 5 years. My first book took me like 7 years to finish. And so the landscape changed a lot before I was able to actually start getting it out. But you do have to build your own fan base. At least that's what I find to be the most valuable is putting things out there constantly as you're making it to build that fan base, because that only is the only way to make Kickstarter work, is to bring your fan base to Kickstarter, and then it can build from there. But you have to bring people to that platform, and so in my mind does change a lot on the best strategy, like Image, Dark Horse, self-publishing, Kickstarter. What's the best way? I still wrestle with that and debate with that, but I do love a Kickstarter, and I love doing it myself, except for the shipping. So I can totally agree with that. But yeah, and then as far as sharing the work, like there's a lot of emphasis on how do I share it. And my personal take on that is, if I can just focus on something that is so amazing that other people want to share it for me, then I've done my job. If my product isn't share worthy and people aren't going to share it, then I've failed, and I need to go back and keep working at it to get it to where it can be share worthy. Because I don't care how people share it. I don't care what platform or social media or writing a letter to somebody. My goal is to make it so that someone else wants to share it, not me knock on everybody's door, right? So it's like finishing the book, make it share worthy, and then all the other questions get answered. So simple, right?
So simple. And I mean, I think the perfect last comment for this conversation at the moment. So amazing. Jason, where do people find you?
coffeetablecomics.com, and you can go to YouTube and find me on there at Coffee Table Comics as well.
Lots of great content that you put up on YouTube around a lot of this things that we've been circling around today as well. So definitely a good resource. Jason, Kevin, Alex's, all the Alexes. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to have this conversation. There's so much we didn't get to that, hopefully we can circle back with, but really appreciate you taking the time today, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and all that good stuff. And there will be more to come.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.